Who will play the... Ye anila premadana karuna pracho Ye anila premadana Karuna prajo Ena Prabhu kota gela acharya tako Prabhu kota gela acharya tako kahamora saruprupa kaha sanatan kaha Dasa raghunata patita pavan Kahamora bata yuga kaha kaviraj ekakale kota gela gora Nataraj Pashane Godiva Mata Annale Pashiva Gunera nidhi kota kele pama Se sabha sangira sange ye kolo vilas Sangha napaya kande narotamadas Jayanila premadana karuna brajo Prabhu kota gela acharya tako
He who brought the treasure of divine love and who is filled with compassion and mercy, where has such a personality as Srinivas Acharya gone? Where are my Srup Damodar and Rupa Goswami? Where is Sanatan? Where is Raghunath Das, the savior of the fallen? Where are my Raghunath Bhatta and Gopal Bhatta? And where is Krishna Das Kaviraj? Where did Lord Gauranga, the great dancer, suddenly go? I will smash my head against a rock and enter into fire. Where will I find Lord Gauranga, the reservoir of all wonderful qualities? Being unable to obtain the association of Lord Gauranga, accompanied by all of these devotees in whose association he performed his pastimes, Narottam Das simply weeps. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, fourth canto, creation of the fourth order, chapter 28. Paranjana becomes a woman in the next life. And text 47. Okay. Atmanam Shochati Dinam Abandum Vikla Vashubhihi Stanav Asishya Vipane Susvaram Praruroda Sa Atmanam Shochati Dinam Abandum Viklavashubhihi Stanav Asishya Vipane Susvaram Prarurodasa Atmanam Shochati Dinam Abandum Viklavashubhihi Stanav Asitya Vipane Susvaram Parurodasa Atmanam Shochati Dinam Abandum Viklavashubhihi Stanav Asitya Vipane Susvaram Prarurodasa.
Atmanam Shochati Dinam Atmanam Shochati Dinam Abandum Viklavashubhihi Stanav Asitya Vipane Susvaram Prarurodasa Atmanam Shochati Dinam Atmanam Shochati Dinam Abandum Viklavashubhihi Stanavasya Vipane Susvaram Prarurodasa Atmanam Shochati Dinam Atmanam Shochati Dinam Abandum Viklavashubhihi Stanavasya Vipane Susvaram Prarurodasa Atmanam Shochati Dinam Abandum Viklavashubhihi Stanavasya Vipane Susvaram Prarurodasa Atmanam Shochati Dinam
Okay. Atmanam, about herself. Shochati, lamenting. Dinam, wretched. Ubandum, without a friend. Viklava, broken-hearted. Ashrubihi, by tears. Stanau, her breasts. Asitya, wedding. Vipane, in the forest. Susvaram, loudly. Praruroda, began to cry. Sa, she. Translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Being now alone and a widow in that forest, the daughter of Vidarbha began to lament, incessantly shedding tears, which soaked her breast, and crying very loudly. Purport. Figuratively, the queen is supposed to be the disciple of the king. Thus, when the mortal body of the spiritual master expires, his disciple should cry exactly as the queen cries when the king leaves his body. However, the disciple and the spiritual master are never separated because the spiritual master always keeps company with the disciple, as long as the disciple follows strictly the instructions of the spiritual master. This is called the association of Vani, words. Physical presence is called Vapu. As long as the spiritual master is physically present, the disciple should serve the physical body of the spiritual master. And when the spiritual master is no longer physically existing, the disciple should serve the instructions of the spiritual master. Om Gyanativarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshulanmilitamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karitavachalam Pangam Langayate Kadem Yakipatamaham Vande Shri Guru Taranam Vancha Kapadirubhishcha Kripas Nribevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Ramanamaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay. Translation again. Being now alone and a widow in that forest, the daughter of Vidarbha began to lament, incessantly shedding tears which soaked her breast and crying very loudly. So today is the disappearance of the anniversary disappearance of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. How many years has it been now? 46 years. So most of us, how old were you in 1977, Ramapaji? 4, okay. So most of us didn't experience it, this particular, when Srila Prabhupada left 1977, directly. Some of us did here. And some of us weren't in this body. We're in a previous body at that time. So, but all, you could say, members of ISKCON, Srila Prabhupada's direct disciples and his grand disciples and grand disciples and so on. It is a day that will be celebrated throughout time. The day where Srila Prabhupada left, the disappearance, and people may wonder, okay, why celebrate the disappearance of a acharya? And Prabhupada gave the example that the rising of the sun is very beautiful. So that's like the appearance of a great personality in this world. And the setting of the sun is also very beautiful. or the disappearance of the sun. So, and aside from that, it's very instructive. The Acharya instructs in his life by his example throughout his life, and he also instructs us in his final days how to depart successfully. So this particular, of course, generally devotees shy away from talking about, for example, the disappearance of Lord Krishna, and they also shy away of talking about the disappearance of other great acharyas, because it is a subject that is, you could say, difficult to talk about, or may cause, you could say, lamentation or so on. But within this particular section of the Srimad Bhagavatam, this particular verse that I read, of the 4th canto, chapter 28, text 47, Srila Prabhupada in the purport is explaining that when the spiritual master leaves, the disciple should cry exactly as the queen cries when the king leaves his body. And then he goes on to explain, first of all, let's see here. So His Holiness Giraj Swami, he writes about his particular experience and when Srila Prabhupada left. He says that after going to Govardhan Hill, because it was Srila Prabhupada's last desire to go to Govardhan Hill, he wanted to circumambulate Govardhan Hill. So Prabhupada left in this month of Kartik, so Govardhan Puja, he wanted to go around Govardhan Hill, and the devotees, they had mixed feelings about that, because they felt that if Srila Prabhupada went around Govardhan Hill in a bullock cart, then he wouldn't be able to survive that. And so some were saying he should go, and some were saying he shouldn't go, because it's his desire. So what should we do? As disciples, should we fulfill the desire, or should we impose our own desire that he doesn't go? So eventually, after going back and forth and discussing with Prabhupada, and then eventually Srila Prabhupada agreed. He said, okay, I won't go around Govardhan Hill, because the disciples were feeling so much pain, there was and so much anxiety that he wouldn't survive it. So he said, okay, I'll stay here in Vrindavan at the temple, Krishna Balarama temple. So that was his last desire. Now, understanding that, the devotees after Prabhupada's disappearance, they took Srila Prabhupada around Govardhan Hill in the form of a murti. So all the devotees in Vrindavan, ISKCON devotees in Vrindavan, they took Prabhupada in the form of a murti, and they brought him around Govardhan Hill. So His Holiness Giraj Swami, he goes on to explain that after the exhilaration of the outing to Govardhan Hill, during which he felt Srila Prabhupada's presence strongly, he was again beset by deep feelings of separation. He said he was constantly on the verge of tears, and any slight remembrance of him could set him off. And he writes here, I was also concerned about our future without Prabhupada's personal presence. What would happen to us individually as devotees? What would happen to the movement? How would we function? I recalled an exchange almost 6 years earlier when we had been living in the Chatai hut in Juhu. One of the devotees had mentioned Prabhupada's ultimately leaving us, and Srimati had responded, ISKCON without Prabhupada. It's hard to imagine. So, looking for solace and guidance in Prabhupada's books, I came across a section that addressed the disappearance of the spiritual master. 4:28, 45 through 55, these verses. Some passages encouraged me that my lamentation over Prabhupada's departure was justified. Some that I could regain his association by serving his instructions. So just like we read this verse now about how the queen was lamenting and how the disciples should lament also. So he was saying he found in Prabhupada's books how it's justified. And then what about regaining the association of the spiritual master? We just read that in text 47 that the disciple always keeps the company of the guru, provided the disciple follows the instructions. The company is always there in the form of instructions. Now the next verse, verse 48, discussed the chaos or disorder that I anticipated might follow Prabhupada's disappearance. So he's remembering how, feeling how, okay, Prabhupada left, and now he was anticipating that there was going to be some chaos. And Prabhupada writes about this. So we'll just read that text 48. "O best of kings, please get up, get up. Just see the world surrounded by water and infested with rogues and so-called kings. This world is very much afraid, and it is your duty to protect her." So the queen's saying, get up, get up. I mean, he's the king's, he's not going to get up. But she's saying, get up in her madness. And she's saying, there's rogues and there's thieves, and who's going to protect us? Who's going to protect the world? Get up, get up. But he's not getting up. In the purport, Prabhupada says, writes, "Whenever an acharya comes, following the superior orders of the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his representative, he establishes the principles of religion as enunciated in Bhagavad Gita. Religion means abiding by the orders of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Religious principles begin from the time one surrenders to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is the Acharya's duty to spread a bona fide religious system and induce everyone to bow down before the Supreme Lord. One executes the religious principles by rendering devotional service, specifically the 9 items like hearing, chanting, and remembering." And then Prabhupada explains, "Unfortunately, when the Acharya disappears, rogues and non-devotees take advantage and immediately begin to introduce unauthorized principles in the name of so-called swamis, yogis, philanthropists, welfare workers, and so on. Actually, human life is meant for executing the orders of the Supreme Lord, as this is stated in Bhagavad Gita 9:34, Manmana Bhavan Bhakto." He's remembering how he was anticipating this chaos, and then that would ensue after Prabhupada's disappearance, and he read about it, and Prabhupada was speaking about that after the Acharya disappears, then chaos ensues. And this we see, it happens, like we see in Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's institution. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur worked very hard to establish his institution, the Gaudiya Math. And it was a very powerful institution that had temples all over India, 64 temples. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had so many disciples, double, triple, quadruple the number of disciples Srila Prabhupada had, our Srila Prabhupada. He had a lot of disciples all over India. And out of all of those disciples, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he had 18 sannyasis. He initiated 18 sannyasis, and maybe around 24 Babajis. Babajis chanting Hare Krishna all day and night practically, not being involved in much preaching or management. But the sannyasis, and also the sannyasis weren't involved in much management. He also had other devotees who weren't sannyasis, like Kunja Bihari and Ananta Vasudeva and others, who were more the managers of the institution. So it was a powerful institution. I mean, they were really doing a lot. And these persons he was working with were very qualified. You could read about them. They had a lot of qualifications, spiritually and materially. Specifically these sannyasis, 18 sannyasis. But then after, I mean, it's Srila Prabhupada explained to us, our Srila Prabhupada explained to us that his guru, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he actually left early. Means he departed early. He was quite young. He was like 60 something, I think. And Prabhupada explained that he was displeased, largely, with a lot of his disciples, specifically leading disciples, because he felt that they were getting too, they're becoming sidetracked by material opulence and so on. Because with all of that preaching and all of that, the institution that was established, I mean, a lot of money was coming. They were living in beautiful buildings, and a lot of fame and adoration and all that was coming. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur saw that they weren't handling it properly. And then he left. And then after that, I mean, and he predicted this. I mean, he was quite a he actually made a number of predictions, like father, like son. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur also made a number of predictions. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur also made a number of predictions. But one of the predictions he made, one is that Prabhupada would spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. That was one of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's predictions. And another prediction he made was that he called it fire. There'll be fire in the mat. It means there'll be fire in this institution when I leave. It's coming soon. And it did. And for a number of years, there was all of these court cases over the property, and then there was two personalities, and there was practically, they split into two groups. Who would be the Charya, this one or this one? And Srila Prabhupada, seeing all of this, I mean, he saw the institution when it was, powerful and striving and preaching all over India, and he saw it in its best, and then he saw it dwindle. But he was always trying to encourage his godbrothers. Let's take up the mission of our spiritual master. But it wasn't happening. And Prabhupada, at one particular point, there's some poems Srila Prabhupada wrote. You could find it in a book. The book was put together by what's that devotee's name? Dasa. Dasara Sutta. Yeah. So it's pretty much all of Prabhupada's poems he's written. And some of those poems, he's very strong. And he's criticizing his godbrothers and what they're doing, but he's also encouraged them, let's get together and let's take up the mission. So Prabhupada, interesting enough, was very critical, but he was always hopeful that they would again take up the mission. And even when Prabhupada came to America, I mean, he was in America and he was writing to them, let's join together and send some men and we'll work together. But they didn't want to, so then Prabhupada went on to establish the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. But, what is it?
When was the success of this mission? Also, he wrote them that let's go to...
Even after, yeah. So yeah, he saw things fall apart. Srila Prabhupada saw his spiritual master's institution fall apart, which yeah, really pained him, his heart. So this is you could say this is the danger that, okay, the Acharya comes, he establishes things, and then when he leaves, it falls apart. That's the danger. Now, ISKCON has not fallen apart. It's still continuing to today. We're sitting in an ISKCON temple, and there's ISKCON temples all over the world. They're probably building a few right now in India. You know, they build one every week. I'm just joking, but you know, yeah, they build a lot in India, so it's going on. Now people have their different devotees, right? Different devotees means different opinions and understandings and interpretations and all that. So different devotees have expressed some of their concerns about, they don't say everything is improper, or they don't say everything is against what they feel Prabhupada would want, but they have their concerns, which we won't get into all those right now. But as a society, it should be our concern that, as members of a particular society, it should be of ISKCON, it should be our concern that we individually and collectively represent Srila Prabhupada and all that he stood for, and that we understand his message as he gave it to us, and we don't change it and alter it and so on for our own purposes, or to get more, for example, get more. If we were to change the philosophy, we get a lot more followers, right? Just take away a few of the four regulative principles, we get a lot more followers. Now that's extreme, but we could do that to different degrees. So within ISKCON, it is, I mean, historically, chaos did in different parts of the world, more or less. India seemed to, I mean, there's also some problems in India, but a lot of the major problems happen throughout the world. And best not to, because there's all types of stuff on the internet. There's people who could explain it properly, and there's people who can't explain it properly. In other words, they may have different motives. Some of the motives are just to take people out of ISKCON or to whatever. There's so many motives. But Ravindra Swarup Prabhu, he has one seminar that he gave. It's called The Hidden History of ISKCON, and he explains the chaotic times in a very Krishna-conscious, philosophical, good way, precise, if people have such interests. So there was chaos after Srila Prabhupada left, and like in the 80s, for example. But things, some rocky waters, or rough waters, not rocky waters, rough waters. But things, in many ways, have, calmed down. So going on. So a disciple, it's the business of the disciple, of the perfect disciple of the Acharya, to try to relieve the situation by sincerely following the instruction of the spiritual master. Means there's going to be deviations. That's what Srila Prabhupada is saying. People are going to deviate. When you talk about having an international society, there's going to be people deviating. There's going to be people doing things within the society that Prabhupada wouldn't approve. Now, Srila Prabhupada said it's the business of the perfect disciple to try to relieve the situation by sincerely following the instructions. Now, in relation to that, His Holiness Giraj Swami, he writes that, how would I get detailed guidance from Prabhupada when there was a question regarding which of his instructions to apply in a particular complex situation? And what would be my qualification to receive such guidance? He answers, his answers begin in purport to text 50. And then he explains that a devotee, this indicates that a devotee, because in this particular pastime, eventually the queen, she's ready, I think she actually enters the fire. She was preparing herself to perish in the fire with her husband in this pastime in the 4th canto. So Srila Prabhupada writes that similarly, a devoted disciple of the spiritual master would rather die with the spiritual master than fail to execute the spiritual master's mission. As Krishna comes down upon the earth to reestablish the principles of religion, so as representative of the spiritual master also comes to reestablish religious principles. It is the duty of the disciple to take charge of the mission of the spiritual master and execute it properly. Otherwise, the disciple should decide to die along with the spiritual master. In other words, to execute the will of the spiritual master, the disciple should be prepared to lay down his life and abandon all personal considerations. So, and he explains, Giraj Swami explains, that the last sentence was my assignment and my challenge. To execute the will of the spiritual master, the disciple should be prepared to lay down his life and abandon all personal considerations. And the next 2 purports explain how that guidance would come. This is a Juhu book. Yeah. In this Vrindavan, the final journey chapter. So in these next verses of the Bhagavatam, in the purport, Prabhupada explains, in his Paramatma feature, Krishna is the old friend of everyone. According to Vedic conjunction, Krishna is sitting with the living entities side by side, as the witness waiting for him to turn to him. When one becomes serious to follow the mission of the spiritual master, his resolution is tantamount to seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's nice, huh? When one becomes serious to follow the mission of the spiritual master, his resolution is tantamount to seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As explained before, this means meeting the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the instruction of the spiritual master. This is technically called Vani Seva. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur remarks that unless one is very highly elevated in loving Krishna, one cannot see him as he is. Nonetheless, if one sticks to the principles enunciated by the spiritual master, somehow or other he is in association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Since the Lord is in the heart, he can advise a sincere disciple from within. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. Who knows the verse? Tesham satatayuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam. To those who are constantly devoted and worship me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. In conclusion, if a disciple is very serious to execute the mission of the spiritual master, he immediately associates with the Supreme Personality of Godhead by Vanu or Vapu. This is the only secret of success in seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then he says, instead of trying to see Krishna in some bush in Vrindavan, while at the same time engaging in sense gratification, but instead if one sticks to the principles of following the words of the spiritual master, he will see the Supreme Lord without difficulty. All right, last thing. When the Brahmin asked the woman, so this is from the next purport, which is 52. When the Brahmin asked the woman who the man lying on the floor was, she answered that he was her spiritual master and that she was perplexed about what to do in his absence. At such a time, the Supersoul immediately appears, provided the devotee is purified in heart by following the directions of the spiritual master. A sincere devotee who follows instructions of the spiritual master certainly gets direct instructions from his heart, from the Supersoul. Thus, a sincere devotee is always helped directly or indirectly by the spiritual master and the Supersoul. This is confirmed in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Guru Krishna Prasade Paya Bhakti Lata Bij. If the devotee serves his spiritual master sincerely, Krishna automatically becomes pleased. Yasya prasada bhagavat prasada. By satisfying the spiritual master, one automatically satisfies Krishna. Thus the devotee becomes enriched by both the spiritual master and Krishna. And then he writes, I felt purified and exhilarated. I had gotten the guidance, the answers I needed in a most encouraging and empowering way. I went to share my discovery with Tamal Krishna Goswami and other friends, who agreed that Srila Prabhupada was so perfect that he could provide all necessary instruction even after his departure. All right, so does anybody have any question? Yes, comment?
Thank you for the class. You mentioned about this situation with how to fulfill order spiritual master Srila Prabhupada to go around Govardhan or no. And do you know this in details about how to say this difficult question, because of both was right of because one devotees how to say devotees which want to do this order to, and other devotees understand that if Srila Prabhupada go around Govardhan, he left body.
Around Govardhan.
Yes. And how to understand when we should do this order of spiritual master or no?
Or
because of we have some examples when, for example, like Gorakishore Das Babaji Maharaj, he said that please
don't go to Calcutta.
Yes,
oh,
but
yeah.
this is is not needed to do.
Yeah, all right, good, thank you. Yeah, because you have the case where Srila Prabhupada was, as we were discussing, that Srila Prabhupada was wanting to go around to do parikrama of Govardhan Hill, but then the devotees, there was a group that agreed to that, and they're ready to take Prabhupada because it's Prabhupada's desire. But then there was a group that was saying that if we take you, Prabhupada, we don't know if we're going to survive that trip. It's so bumpy. So you could say out of affection, because that's what it was, out of affection, out of love for Srila Prabhupada, they weren't fulfilling that particular desire of his. But Prabhupada accepted it. And then you have this Gorakishore Das Babaji. He was saying, yes, when I leave my body, then you just drag me through the whatever streets of Navadvip, right? But Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, out of respect, out of love, he said, we can't do that. Now, Gorakishore Das Babaji, he was feeling that about himself. I'm so lowly, I'm so fallen, that's what I deserve, just to drag this body. But as a disciple, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, disciple Gorakishore Das Babaji, he saw him in a different light. Right, he was so exalted, my acharya, my spiritual, so we could never allow that. Although out of humility, he was desiring that. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, out of respect for his spiritual master, didn't allow that. So then the question is, well, how do we know when to follow and when to not follow? Generally, we always err on the side of following, That's a general principle. But there may be some times where, like this time of Srila Prabhupada or Gorkashodas Babaji, it may be acceptable that we don't follow. And you say, how do we know? And you say, that requires some intelligence, right? And as Prabhupada was explaining in this purports, that the intelligence could come from the super soul, he could inspire us. And of course, then you say, well, how do I know if that intelligence is coming from the super soul or if it's coming from my own mind? So then, we checked with senior advanced Vaishnavas and tried to get clarification on the matter. And then act accordingly. So yeah, it could be complicated. But generally, these type of circumstances, if you look at it, how many times did it come up in Prabhupada's life where devotees had to think, okay, should I follow or should I not follow his instructions? There's not so many examples. And in Gorkashodas Babaji, in relation to Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, their relationship, there's not many examples. There's a few, but there's not many examples. So generally, we don't have to deal with that problem so much. Yeah. Yes.
Both of those examples involve the personal body of the Acharya.
Yes.
That's the first thing. Also, the one with Prabhupada, there was a difference there because Prabhupada was still with us, and that what happened is two of his disciples, leading disciples, Tamal Krishna Maharaj and Bhavananda, I believe, went to Prabhupada and just were crying and just expressing their agony because Prabhupada was so delicate, his body, and then all the doctors are saying he won't survive. He had been fasting basically for months. And so they would just express their tremendous disturbance at Prabhupada's doing this. And after, he wouldn't be able to go on parakram. He would leave his body before they got, a mile. And so so they were able to check with him directly. That's the first distinction. And he acceded to them. I can't cause you so much pain and so forth. So he gave up the idea. That was that. Now the other one with Bhaktisiddhanta and Gorkishore, Bhaktisiddhanta first of all said, and it was he claimed, how should I say, the most authority, because there were all Babajis and everyone who gathered together who were ready to start doing it, as far as I remember. And Bhaktisiddhanta stopped them and said, "Wait a minute, I'm his only disciple." You see, and then if you recall, he was saying, "Okay, who didn't have, which one of you renounced Babajis didn't have illicit sex in the last month?" And no one could say, how about the last 2 weeks? How about the last 3 days? None of them could claim it, and they all walked away quietly. In other words, they didn't really have the spiritual authority because they were compromised. And Bhaktisiddhanta, who was super strict, Naistika Brahmachari, chanted 1 billion names of Krishna over nine years. He was tremendously powerful, and he was the sole disciple. And so he claimed, no, this is really what, is not something that he wanted. It was an expression of extreme humility. And so the two were kind of unique situations. And especially the one with Prabhupada, they really could ask him, Prabhupada, this is killing us, we feel horrible about this. And so he said, oh, I can't do that, so he acceded to their demands. So there's kind of unique, in each case there's a unique situation there.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes.
But
one last thing is thank you, Srila Prabhu, and out of you could say on higher levels of expression of bhakti, or so many things could be done. Now, of course, that could be taken out of context, but if somebody has a deep relationship with someone, like with the spiritual master, so many things that would ordinarily, generally they would never stop Prabhupada from doing what he wanted to do. But in this particular case, they did, but it wasn't out of any malice or anything like that, envy or something. It was out of their love, so Prabhupada accepted it. I was just thinking about Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He had one disciple. It's quite interesting. I mean, I never heard of anyone treating Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur the way that this disciple treated him. It was quite kind of a little casual and informal, but with love. But for example, this devotee, it was his practice that every night before Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur would go to sleep, he would go into his room and he would massage his legs. That was his service, and he would cook for him and so on. But it said that even when Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, his light was off in his room, and this devotee would get back kind of late or whatever, he would still go in there, like without, just kind of, and do his service. And he would also, you could say, kind of deal with them in more informal ways. Like in one particular case, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur was wearing a watch. And then this disciple, he started to kind of joke with him and said, "Oh, fancy watch there," type of thing. So at that particular point, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he just told him, yeah, you're overstepping. But anyways, but in general, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he would accept this devotee's, you could say, service, although a lot of people wouldn't interact with him in such, you could say, informal ways. Yes, Chad.
So did you say that they found a compromise as far as Prabhupada goes, going around Govardhan Hill in one of those, what are they called?
Well, after Prabhupada's disappearance, devotees understanding Prabhupada's desire to do parikrama, to walk around Govardhan Hill, so what they did is they got a murti of Srila Prabhupada, they got a form of Srila Prabhupada, a small brass form. I think Dravida Prabhu was there, yeah. And then they went with Srila Prabhupada in the form of a murti around Govardhan Hill.
Part of the parakram of Govardhan takes you to Radhakund. And so between Radhakund and Shamakund, there's a little way you can walk. There's a little walkway there, like I don't know what you call it. I don't know if you call it a bridge. You've been on there. And so on that walkway, we stopped. And Chutananda was running the thing. And we bathed. They did an abhishek with Radhakund water of Prabhupada there. It was very memorable, the whole thing. And in that way, and that was the first murti. This Lochan Das, who came here. Anyway, that's a long story. Prabhupada. Anyway, it's a long story. But the murti here became injured. Damaged a little bit, and so I knew that Lochan he would repair that. He was the one who created all these. He was an incredible sculptor, and he came here, stayed in what was then the garage. Now we divided it into the laundry room and the prasadam room, and he was there. He was here for a week, and he was repairing that in such a way you can't see anything. It's absolutely fixed at 100%. But he created the model upon which all the murtis around the world of Prabhupada were created. And somehow some of the first ones, this is one of the first ones, looks even more realistic than some of the others. So we're very fortunate to have this murti.
Yeah.
One devotee joined on the basis of thinking that Prabhupada was actually there. And when he first came, right? But his name was Balarama, Big Balarama, different Balarama.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you for the class and sharing the sweet pastimes. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. I want to make a comment that I was reading this letter by Srila Prabhupada to one of his disciples. I can't recall the exact title or anything, but it stated that the disappearance of the spiritual master should be celebrated as it's equated to the appearance of the spiritual master. So, how do we take this instruction and that we should lament, we should celebrate, should we do both? Is this okay either way? Because
yeah.
And then I also wanted to ask you to verify the name of the I think it was a documentary that you were mentioning, or the hidden history of ISKCON, and then the book that you're reading as well.
Okay. Yeah, that Hidden History of ISKCON, that's a seminar by Ravindra Swarup Prabhu. And this book is I'll Build You a Temple, the Juhu Story by Giraj Swami.
Oh, sorry, the poem book I wanted you to verify.
Oh, that poem book. That's by Dasa Rath Sutta. I'm forgetting the name of the... Well, he has a whole collection, like it's all of Prabhupada's poems, this book. But I'm forgetting... Anyways, you could look up Dasara Sutta books. Should come up. Prabhupada poem books or something. They print it in India still, I think. This Juhu, you know, they print all types of out-of-print things. So in relation to... You wanted me to comment on... What is it you wanted me to comment on?
The lamentation
Yes.
and the celebration.
So when Srila Haridas Thakur, one of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's dear associates, there's a whole pastime in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the Passion of Haridas Thakur, happens to be 108 verses. And so this chapter explains how describes how Haridas Thakur left in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's presence. It's unique in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes for this to happen. And so we won't get into all the details of that pastime, but at the end, after the whole ceremony was done and kirtan was done and all of that, it says that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he went to take rest. And he said, with mixed feelings of happiness and distress. So yeah, it's generally the disappearance is it's mixed feelings of happiness and distress, whereas the appearance is, you could say maybe, it seems to be more just happiness. So that's the general idea. But we are supposed to celebrate both of them. So with kirtan and glorification and prasadam and all that. So we're going to do that. Yeah, 5:30. Yeah, and then there'll be a celebration in the evening where devotees could share all of their glorification and realizations and all that. Kind of pass the mic around the room. So, all right. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.